Welcome back, everyone, to the Ugly Couch. I'm Jonnyizz. We have the lovely CalvinsCanvas back on. Dark Ginger's out sick, so I'm filling in for her. We're saying lots of best wishes. Get well soon. We want you back, Dark Ginger, because we
Get
know
well soon.
we know you're much better at doing this stuff than I am. So, wherever the heck this is, as she says.
Mm-hmm.
So, Calvin, Canvas, Julie, it's great to have you back.
Thank you.
So we were talking earlier, and you want to talk about communication, which is really important, and not just the kink aspect, but relationships and everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. I really think communication is sort of at the heart of everything. I mean, when you really think about it, like at a molecular level, our cells are communicating, our brains are communicating with our muscles and like our nerves, and there's so much happening. Like basically everything communicates, and we need to embrace that as human beings. And the beauty of humans is that our communication goes so much more beyond like what you see in nature. Like we are articulate, we make languages, we have communication through dance, through body language, through facial expressions that are so complex, and there's so much to it. So we need to embrace it and be honest with our partners, with our coworkers, with our kink partners, all of that.
Definitely. I mean, from like your most like basic conversations of with your friends or family to you go to like when you were at, because I know you just did a scene this weekend that you were telling
Yeah,
me
I
earlier.
did. Yeah.
And I know that right there, there has to be a lot of communication, not just with Calvin, but also the people watching. You have to,
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole other dynamic of communication that just is so much harder to communicate because you're in scene and you have people who are trying to communicate with you and themselves and everything.
Absolutely. And like there's a lot that happens that you don't even realize that you're seeing. A lot of communication is given through body language. So when you are in a topping or a dom position doing an impact scene or a BDSM scene, or even just sort of any sort of sensation scene, um, your your prime responsibility is to read the unsaid communication that's happening, the body language, the sounds that they're making, um, like seeing that they're still okay. You're watching for redness. You're watching for, is this area, has this area had enough? That kind of stuff. So, and then as the uh, like the more deep into subspace you get, the less you communicate verbally, but the more you communicate with body and just and doing scenes together and communicating before and after. There's a thing called debriefing after you do a scene where you would a scene sort of starts and ends with communication. So it begins with a pre-negotiation or just a negotiation. And the negotiation is things like, what tools am I going to use, or am I going to just use my hands, or am I just going to use feathers and massage and hot wax? It's all about, see, this is the thing. Topping is about delivering sensation. The simplest definition is, if you're a top or a dom, you are the one who delivers the sensation. If you are a bottom or a sub, you are the one who receives the sensation. So it can be anything. It can be tickling, it can be hot wax, it can be a hard strike with a cane, which I like, but not everyone likes. I'm a submissive and a masochist. But it starts with negotiation, then the scene happens, then there's a thing called aftercare, and then after the aftercare is done, usually the next day, there's a debrief session. So you talk about what happened in the scene, what you loved, what worked, what you didn't like, and you go forward from there. And then the next, when you're healed again and you're ready for your next scene, you have a new negotiation where it's, I want to try this time, or I loved what we did last time, but I think I would like you to try and hit me harder, that kind of stuff. And then you have that scene,
That's awesome.
aftercare. It's awesome, yeah.
So,
And it's the whole process is about communication, right? It's amazing.
so the one thing I that you touched on, which is one of my favorite topics, is the aftercare, because everybody doesn't
Oh,
matter
right.
whether everyone has totally different aftercares.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that. It's so true.
I mean, I
Go
know for
ahead.
myself, one of my thing is I just like to cuddle. It's one of those things where it's like, whether I'm big spoon or little spoon, I go both ways. It really depends on, because
Mm.
being a switch, I can literally go from dom to sub in the middle of playing, and I have done it. It's actually kind of one of my favorite things to do, but it's got to be with the right person. And just like you were saying, reading the body language, stuff like
I
that.
love that, Johnny. That's amazing. Like, oh, the switch, this, yeah, the switch dynamic is so interesting.
Okay, you're gonna have to repeat that because unfortunately the video connection got a little spotty. So sorry everyone, we do this route. It is not edited at all.
Sorry, go ahead. We were talking at the same time. Please go ahead.
Sorry, your video connection sort
Did
of
I lose you?
no
Sorry.
no it sort
I think that was time is you. Sorry.
it sort of got a little spotty and glitchy there, so no one really heard what you said, unfortunately.
Okay. All I said was that the switch dynamic is so interesting to me, and it's a really fantastic world. I love that there's people out there who love both sides of it and can provide that to a community full of people who also enjoy either one or the other or both. It's such a cool thing to be able to bring.
Oh, it's definitely is. It's the hardest part is, even though I'm a switch at leans dom, when I go to my sub site, it's very hard for me finding partners that know how to handle it correctly or how to be,
Mm.
because for me it's that, depending on where I could be more, especially in the aftercare, I need more affection. I need, you know, but then also it's like knowing, like I like the sensual, like more dominance when I'm with my
Mm-hmm.
partners, where it's, it's not like degrading you. It's that build up one.
Yeah, a
And there's
supportive
different types.
style.
I mean, there are some who love being degraded. It is the hardest thing when I'm in my down phase to degrade people like that, because it's
Mm-hmm.
just, it goes against everything I was taught by my mama.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it gets
That's
really, really
very
tough.
sweet.
So that's a tougher one for me. Have I done it? Yes. Is it awkward? Hell yes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just fucking insane how this stuff, just communication, that one word or that one thing can drastically change everything. So give me one scenario where communication was misread that you've
It's
had.
true. And if you communicate to future partners or communication, what?
So I know you've done a number of different scenes and had partners and whatnot. Where was like one thing like the communication was just really bad?
Oh, I've never experienced any bad communication in any of my scenes with my partners. We had a few, a lot more ease than two people who don't really know each other yet or who are new partners that are engaging in play like this. We had a very huge advantage, and we recognize that. Knowing coming into the kink community after 12 years of being sort of like romantically involved and then married, but then not super kinky or not super into BDSM, and then discovering that side together as a couple. We were fortunate to have found that he was a dom and I was a sub, and that we fit that way. So we've always had really strong communication in our scenes. There's a lot of I have a lot of great examples, but there's a lot of stuff that I've seen that I feel wasn't great communication in other scenarios.
Can you just give us one or give us a few? Just so you
Yeah,
know,
definitely.
this way everyone knows. I mean, because what I've had experience bad communication wise is may be similar, might be different, but you know, it's always fun comparing notes, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's one thing that's really great. So that like everyone's heard of safe words. If you're brand new to the community, um, there's a really simple set of words that you can use when you first start playing. And it's like me and I know that I don't want the scene to end. So it might be a tool that you're like done with, or maybe that area doesn't want to be struck anymore, or something of that kind. Or like say it's a tickling one, right? Like you would say yellow when you're like, I'm gonna pee my pants. I can't be tickled anymore. So, and then the dom would move on to something else more sensual, perhaps massage, or perhaps, see, that's your sensual domination that you were talking about, right? So a
Right.
little bit of tickling, maybe some restraint, maybe some massage, maybe some sensual sexual touching if your sub is into that, or if your play partner is into that and that's been pre-negotiated. There's a whole world of domination that
Oh,
doesn't require you to hit, right?
oh, absolutely.
So
There's
one thing that
there's
I've seen in the past is there's ways that you can restrain and ways that you can like play that will cover or restrict the ability to speak for your sub. So there's ball gags, there's little like bits and stuff. Very sexy, very hot. If you're into that, yeah, do it. But you have to come up with an alternative for a safe word. So there's some really great tools, and what I've seen that's not good in the past is people who are engaging in that, but then not giving their
so oh so yeah, this is always fun when technical difficulties happen. But you know, this is part of doing the podcast live, right, folks? And we're back with after technical difficulties. And no,
oh
folks,
my.
you do not edit. We do not do anything. We just do it raw. So yes, technical difficulties are part of being raw, and that's why we're the goddamn ugly couch.
It's not called the ugly couch for no reason.
Damn for Skippy. Unfortunately, none of us have the ugly couch with us, but it's here in spirit.
That's right.
So you were saying you were last talking about like if someone has like a ball gag or something like that in their mouth and they can't communicate.
Yeah. So there's some other alternatives that you can use. So some in the past, I've definitely seen that happen at clubs or other play areas where they've deprived their sub of the ability to speak through verbal communication, but then not provided an alternative. And there's so many alternatives out there. One of the ones that I mentioned was like a dog squeaker. So instead of being able to make a verbal sound, they can just squeak the toy, and then that would mean play.
Another
Um,
one that I know more from like a martial art background is tapping out. Like you,
yeah,
it,
and that's excellent too.
it's a great one because you don't have to have an extra thing. As long as, I mean, if your hands are bound, depending on where they're bound, you
Mm-hmm.
still can make a sound by tapping on whatever object, hopefully, or your leg or something that they can see.
Sometimes, yes, there's some shibari and stuff that does restrict all hand movements in the way that you'd be able to make any sort of slapping, but there'd be a
Yeah.
squeak in it. Um, so there are definitely times. There's definitely always the tap out option. There's another one called a drop item or a drop signal, and so basically that's just something that they're hanging on to, and if they let it fall, drop it out of their hand, it's
Okay.
over. Um, I think drop signals are used in other non-kink related things as well, like military and stuff, but I'm not 100% on
I
that.
I can definitely see it being used for like the suspension stuff where you're being rigged and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's
Mm-hmm.
so hard because some of them do have they're hanging and that's actually pretty obvious. That's a much easier than trying to do the squeak or whatnot because
Mm-hmm.
it makes it a lot easier.
And in shibari, we haven't actually tried rope or shibari or any of that kind of bondage yet because it's one of those things where you really need to know what you're doing as the rigger, and you really need to know how to read your body and read uh, your your muscles and stuff as the person being tied to
Yeah.
be able to communicate effectively when there is something that's happened, like if you're experiencing any sort of pull or tension while you're being tied, you need to have safety scissors. And those ropes come off. I don't care if those ropes cost you $160 and they're like beautiful nylon, they come off
Now,
because the longer
when
the
you
ropes
say
are on
safety
while you
scissors,
fuss
are you
with
talking like
knots.
medical shears that are sort of like that, like
Yes.
weird? Okay.
Yeah, the medical scissors with the flat bottoms. You can get them at the dollar stores. You can get them in medical kits and stuff. But like, if you leave ropes on too long,
Oh yeah.
um, and you're feeling a pull while you're fussing with knots to try and whatever, it will cause damage and can be
Oh yeah.
permanent damage sometimes
Oh,
or months worth of recovery.
definitely. I mean, and if anyone's looking, Leatherman, love to have you sponsor this channel. But I know
Yeah.
Leatherman makes safety scissors that would be great for a lot of people who go to like these clubs and scenes that have
Mm,
that they fold up and they can actually fit in your pocket. One, and they're designed for EMTs and first
beautiful.
responders, but they also have for like rings. They actually have a shear that can cut the ring off your finger if it's like too tight or whatever. It's a cool
That's
feature.
amazing. So if you're experiencing swelling or whatever, yeah.
That and
Oh.
also like the reason I brought it up is like if you do like if someone decided to do the rigging with like the steel cable type of deal and they put like the lock that's
Mm.
on your collar,
Yeah.
there's a way to get it off.
Yeah, totally. That's really
It's
awesome. And like some people do use things like that in their
there,
different setups
yeah,
for
some
sure.
people do go for extreme stuff, and it's one of those, you know, whatever you're doing, have the tool. Besides communication, have the safety gear for some of that stuff on the back end. Like the one thing that I always I go to a lot of these gangbangs and whatnot, and the one thing I'm always surprised about is that all these people who host them, they never had. only one had a first aid kit,
Mm-hmm.
and but no one's ever had like one of those portable defibrillators.
Oh,
And the
wow.
reason I
Yeah.
bring that up is not because of like someone like me. I've seen some of these guys that come to these things. They're old enough to be my grandfather, and I'm like, because you see them walking in there with a cane. It's like, and it's not like the pimp cane, right? It's like they need it more for stability, and there are times I wonder, like, do we need to call 911? Sometimes
Yeah,
because
what emergency plan is in place for these older folks that but I mean it's
right.
it's so true because like the thing is that I mean age is just a thing, right? So age is just a number. There's nothing to say that an 80-year-old or a 70-year-old isn't kinky AF, right?
Oh,
So
definitely.
like but there are absolutely health concerns that you might want to consider. It's like maybe you should have other kinds of first aid items on hand if you're going to be running like a big kink club or a BDSM club for
Right.
sure.
I mean, besides the normal hand sanitizer, disinfectant stuff, this, that,
Yeah.
you know, definitely having like just a basic first aid kit. You can go to like the dollar store and pick up like basic stuff of
Mm-hmm.
gauze and all this stuff. You
And a
don't
good
need.
dom, a good dom has an aftercare kit as well as their BDSM kit too, and that usually has you know um, high sugar treats as well as like like protein slash like granola slash like some sort of like good nutritious sort of bars
Yeah, I
for
have a
a
whole bunch of
separate
those.
sub
I'd be
drop.
having those afterwards.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it like if you like sometimes your sub needs like a sugar rush, sometimes you need a little protein boost. There's sometimes there's water and juice. There's always like well there should be usually for like minimal first aid stuff, a blanket in case because sub drop is a thing that happens and sometimes that can come with chills, sometimes that can come with low
Wait,
blood sugar.
hold on. What's sub drop? I've never heard that.
Oh, this is a very okay. So this is a very good thing to talk about during the communication discussion as well, because just as there is subspace,
Right.
there are also two negative things that can happen to submissives. One is called sub drop, and one is called sub frenzy. So
I've
sub
never heard of
drop.
those.
Okay, so sub drop would be when a scene. Um, so when you're having a scene you're giving over it's an illusion of control. You're at the base of it all, um, you are always in control as the sub because one word ends play, but you are giving over your control of everything to another person and letting yourself go. And that can bring you into a space called subspace, which is a beautiful thing. It lets you let go of anything that's been troubling you
Oh,
during the
definitely.
day, the week.
It's a
Yeah,
great space to be. I've been there myself. It's so
absolutely. Sometimes, sorry, go ahead.
it's I can definitely say it's one of my favorites. Like when I'm in my sub state, I love being there. But that's I think where you're going with this. I think that's where I'm in the bad subspace too.
No, so yeah, like subspace itself is wonderful, but what can happen after is because you've had such an emotional, cathartic experience where you've felt so present in your own body and your own mind, and you've let go of some shit, and it's like you can have like an emotional drain after that, a sort of like a drop, basically, like it almost like you're coming off of a crazy drug that like makes you feel a little bit sad or cold or shivery or confused or quiet or tired. There's a lot of different things that can happen. So it doesn't happen. I've actually never experienced it. No, that's not true. I think I've been really cold once after, but for the most part, I usually have like the really good like high in the subspace that lasts after until I get into my cozy aftercare mode, and then I need to be in like sweatpants and stuff like that. But in case there's sub drop, you want to have those other things like the food and the blankets and the things that might need to be a little bit of extra aftercare kit. And sub frenzy is when you are so excited by everything submissive and you're so excited about the experiences that you're having with your dom or your top or your multiple tops or doms as you're going through the community, and you're learning a lot and you want to try everything all at once, all the time, with no breaks, and that's dangerous. It's important for a dom or a top to recognize if a sub is in sub frenzy and make them take the time to heal, make them take the time to communicate about what they're feeling, and then to communicate back to them that what they are feeling is normal, but it's not healthy, and they can do other things instead to relieve that sub frenzy without causing damage to the skin or the muscle tissue or any other kinds of things. So it's important to be communicative about what you're feeling as a dom and as a sub all the time.
I definitely see, because I could definitely say when I get to like my bad subspace, I'm like bawling in tears.
Yeah, you're
And
probably dropping at that point.
yeah, it sounds more like after you described sub drop, I was like, okay, yep, been there. Because it's one of those. It's like fetal position, little, like feeling like a little kid, like scared, and it it's a bad feeling. I hate when I'm like that because I've never
Yeah,
had anyone who's able to bring me out of it.
yeah.
I mean,
What
I've
you need
had
in
I had to
space.
bring somebody out of a panic attack after we played once,
Oh my, okay.
and it luckily I've had the anxiety and panic attacks, so it wasn't like I started panicking. It was like I'm trying to talk them through it,
Mm-hmm.
and just like okay, is it okay for me to touch you? Because when people get like that, you don't want to just like hug them and whatnot, even though it's instinctively you don't know
Yeah,
how they're
everybody
going to
needs
react.
something different. Yeah.
And I had to talk her, and apparently, supposedly, I was the only one ever to do that, to get her to like. I was the only one ever to have. She was ever to have one with like that after playing, and I was the only one ever, or I was at least the only one ever to get her out of it. Which, you know, all good intentions, but everything else after that is a whole nother story that I really hate
Yeah.
talking about sometimes.
We don't have to get into it. Yeah.
But it was,
My suggestion, sorry, go ahead.
but that was probably the worst, I think. And I want to say that's more of a dom drop. Like she was actually
Mhm.
dominant in that, and she just like was on this high, and also another high on top of that. That she just like crashed because she was doing an illegal substance as well as on this high of playing.
Mhm.
So I think just the combination just like built up too much that she just crashed hard.
Yeah, so when she sort of had like a sub drop or even like a switch drop or whatever, you had a dom drop, and dom drop is real too. Um, there's a lot that can happen to a dom's headspace when they've done a scene on someone and they may question whether or not they were too hard or whether or not that person actually enjoyed it. Did I go too far? So the key to communication in the aftercare and the debrief is that after a scene happens, um, if you have any apprehensions about anything, either side, you talk about it. And then what you get back is the reassurance that it wasn't too hard, the reassurance that it wasn't too far, or the confirmation that that one that you're thinking about was too hard and maybe we don't do that again. But it's the thing is it has to be talked about always. And I
Right.
suggest for you when it comes to when you've experienced sub drop is to prepare your future play partners for that. Explain to them that not always, but sometimes after you've had a really wonderful, beautiful emotional experience with them in a scene or in a play or in a sexual way, sometimes it overwhelms you to the point where you have an emotional, sensitive human reaction.
Oh
And
yeah.
then what you can say, yeah, and then when you can say to them is when it's not happening, because when it's happening, it's harder to communicate. But when
Definitely.
it's not happening before you've played, you can say, what I need from you then is light touching, but only of my shoulders and arms, soft talking. Sometimes I won't be able to answer you. So please don't ask me a lot of questions for the first little while. Or whatever works for you, right?
Oh yeah.
And and then ask them to tell you about their experiences with any sorts of things and ask them what they need if that ever happens to them. And that's the most beautiful, like, that's such an important part of building any relationship. And I'll tell you something fun about it. Once you start talking about what you like, what you need, what you want, and what you've experienced in the past, you get so fucking hot and turned on for each other because you're talking about the shit that gets you hot
Oh yeah.
eventually. So it's not only is it important and it's healthy, but it's good for you guys. Like, it's good for the libido. It's good for the connection
It's
to
almost like
happen,
chicken
right?
soup for the soul type of deal.
Yeah, I don't know if you like I was having this conversation, some pictures the other day with this other content creator because he was talking about how he was editing some videos, and I replied with, "Don't you just like get so hot, like hard or whatever when you're editing your own content?" And he's like, "All the time," and it's so funny. It's true. Like, my husband and I used to get like we used to go online and shop for like underwear, like just go to like a panty, like a Susie or not a Susie, like a, I don't know, like Lavina Rose website, and literally just look at underwear and order them. We don't have the underwear. We have to wait like a week for them to come. But just the act of sitting there ordering underwear, imagining what I'm going to look like in them, then we go and fuck like crazy after, and then we fuck again when the underwear come, and it's amazing. It's
Well, I
like
could
this is the
definitely
kind of
say,
stuff that you can do with a partner.
well, it's
Yeah,
like
go
even
ahead.
like your Thanksgiving photo set that you and your husband did, where you
Yeah.
both were wearing red, was just absolutely like the most beautiful thing. Like you can actually see like I've commented on a lot of your guys' stuff on both of your pages, and I know you've seen it too. But it's like
I know.
you guys can see like you see the emotion and the love and all that in your guys' content. You see it, it's so beautiful. It's so you can see it's real. It's not the fake stuff you see on a million plus sites, you know.
Oh, thank you so much.
So it definitely. I know it's getting towards the end because I know you have some things to do. So is there anything you'd like to plug in? Any mentions or anything?
Uh, that's a good question. My husband and I have a couple's OnlyFans account, and it's at wife-life, and we have our own Fet Life pages as well. I'm sure all the links will be in the description.
Oh yeah,
And
we're gonna plug those
um,
suckers in down
we
below for you.
have we have over 900 videos and photos on OnlyFans now, and between the two of us on set, we have probably close to about 600 or 700 posts. I'm not 100% sure. I think he's got over six, and I've got over one something. So, anyway, check it all out. It's really hot content. I started showing my face about 5 months ago, so there's a lot of content where like everything's there, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I can definitely say I love, especially when you do like the '50s pit up style. But
Me too.
I definitely love the steampunk like punk rock look you got going on.
I know. So this is how I get my 50s hair. I curl it in a few varieties of ways. This is one way that I do it.
But
Usually
with
after
the
my shower, I'll put it up so that it stays. But yeah,
well,
with the choker and the everything.
and the black nail polish and everything, it was like I'm back in
Oh
high
yeah,
school.
this was left over.
Yeah, I'm like, yep, middle school, high school. Yep, it's gonna be a good night.
Oh my god, right? It's like it's so the craft right now.
Uh, you know what's funny is that I'm waiting for that phase where where I'm waiting for like one of my little cousins. She's gonna hit that phase soon, and I'm waiting to see like how it goes.
How old is she now?
She's gonna be turning 13 here soon.
Oh my god, she's so gonna be hot topicking it up. Like it's gonna be so good.
Oh, it's gonna be. I'm looking. I'm gonna be going because now she's hitting that anime phase that we all hit at some point.
Nice.
And so
Me too, man.
she's finding out that wait a second, I used to watch Naruto and I got her to start reading like the manga books, the actual comic books,
Nice.
because
Yes.
she didn't
That
realize that they
changed
gave
my
more
life when I was
detail than the TV shows.
absolutely. Yeah. Like when I was a preteen and someone turned me on to the actual manga instead of just and not just manga, but like the anime that's out there that's not just the shit that's on YTV.
Oh
Like
yeah,
there are, that changed my life.
the one I remember, the two I remember, and they were not mainstream at all, was AI Love You and Henty House, which
Cool. I have to check those out.
I definitely recommend. So what AI Love You is, this guy developed a computer program that became a real life person somehow, and
I
it's
can
sort of like,
already know where it's going.
and what's really cool about it is like it shows like how he teaches a person how to be or how computer program how to be human, but also like dealing with the relationship stuff at the same time. And then what I thought was cool about Henty House was this guy's grandmother owned this house, sort of boarding house for women only. Well, she passed away and left it to him. So now he's in charge, staying in this house and running it, and he's surrounded by all these different kind of just beautiful women. And he doesn't even know how to deal with it.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so fun. Oh, those books sound like my favorite. I really loved Fruits Basket when I was younger, and The Vision of Escaflowne was my favorite. But Calvin and I are super into the whole Dragon Ball universe.
Oh God,
Oh man, if we
I,
ever watched, we watched all of it.
my I've seen the whole Dragon Ball universe. I'm not too big a fan of how Super has changed the backstory of some of the characters,
Agreed.
because I really dislike what they did to Brawly.
Mm-hmm. Calvin feels the same.
But I also don't get how Trunks' hair has changed to a totally different color from what was in the Dragon Ball Z. But go
I
figure.
know.
But like my big one was Roni Kenshin and Gundams.
Yes, I watched a lot of the Gundams because it was readily available. It was on the YTV channel here in Canada, and we were able to get access to
Oh yeah,
it. So I
it was
did watch a lot of Gundam when I was younger.
it was on Toonami here in the States on Cartoon
Cool.
Network, and I still love Gundam Wing.
I
And
loved Gundam Wing, and I could probably still remember at least the tune to the opening, but I'm not going to sing it because I don't
yeah, and
do
then
that.
the other sort of like weird one was Zords.
I don't remember that one.
This one was
Or is
sort of it was sort of an offshoot. It was pretty much these people who would control these robots, and the robots would have some of their own personalities, but they would they're animals. So you had different ones. So you had the Liger that had different setups. You had this one that one. It's a really it's sort of like a playoff of Power Rangers type of deal, in a post-apocalyptic world is the
Oh
easiest
man.
way I could describe it. So, and I got really into it where I was actually buying the models and building them. That's how much of a nerd I was for them. And same thing with
Man,
Gundam.
I think what I love the most about anime in general is that you don't get that kind of creative storytelling, creative character development, creative world building in American and Canadian programming. You don't see it. You don't see the like there's nothing off limits when it comes to their science fiction, their fantasy building. They do it all and they go hard and I love it. I'm always so enchanted by most of the animes I
Oh,
watch.
definitely. I mean, some of the animes I used to watch, what sorry about that. I
Not
gotta
at
cough
all.
for a sec.
Yeah, no problem.
um, so some of the animes just drastically vary of everything, and it's just really cool of how stuff changes. I mean, you have Inuyasha that was really popular on Adult Swim. You have Cowboy Bebop, which I know a lot of people liked, and I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this, but I really did not get. I couldn't get into it, and I just didn't like it.
I loved the music, loved the soundtrack, loved the world building and the concept and stuff. But I actually agree with you. I think it was a slow show.
It definitely was. The one that I really think was very much underplayed, but the comics were so good, but the TV show just did so wrong, was Shaman King.
I actually haven't watched that one.
It it was on for a very short time, and it's really cool because it's about sort of this guy where he has this one samurai spirit follow him, and he can cast the shaman into different objects, and he holds them like a sword. So it could be like a stick, a sword, a pipe, or
Oh,
whatever.
cool.
And
Okay.
he has so it's a really cool concept where they battle and whatnot. Yes, I know, typical guy thing of yes, fighting violence, yay. But it was really
Always.
but it was really cool to, you know, because it wasn't like your typical like, okay, this one has superpowers, this one has mystic abilities. It was sort of following like the traditional like how shaman like where they can spirits can embody them and they can communicate with spirits and whatnot. It just add
Awesome.
the,
Okay.
the extra of fighting to it and then also taking that and putting it into inanimate objects to use as weapons or whatever.
Man, that sounds cool, but you're saying the manga handles it better and the anime didn't quite.
Right. And that does happen
Okay.
a lot with a lot of anime, unfortunately.
It happens. It happens with novels to movies,
Oh,
comic books to
definitely.
movies, everything really.
It's
It's really hard to turn it into something that you're consuming just visually and audibly, like
oh yeah.
without like, yeah.
It's definitely that is probably the toughest form of communication in the world. Is that a
Mm-hmm.
beaver?
This is my little beaver. His name is Juju the beaver, and he has a little donut. And here's his little beaver bum.
Aw.
I got this from Bella Baby 3326 on FET. She gave it to me because she loves me.
Yeah, I think she told me she was your sister or
These
something.
are well, we're sisters on FET.
Yeah.
We're definitely we're bonded and connected.
Oh, that's
She's
awesome.
actually been there for us a lot in the last year, and we feel like we've actually been there for her a lot in the last year too. So we
Nice.
are we are 100% a connected group for sure.
All right. Well, let's end this quickly. So, everyone,
Yeah, we'll wrap it
like
up.
Julie said, down below will be all the links to Julie, to Julie's profile on FET, Calvin Canvas, her husband, Calvin Garage or George, I can't remember.
George. Yep.
George, down below, plus their OnlyFans. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification, ring it like it's an orgasm.
Do it.
And we'll see y'all soon. Like I said, Ginger's out sick right now, so that's why I'm filling in. So it's not your normal energetic stuff, but I'm a different kind of host. My style's a little different. So, night.
Night.